Hey guys, what's up? It's Casey Zeman, and you are listening to the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast with Chris and Eric Martinez. These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another episode on the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We have Casey Zeman with us. Casey, how you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling really good. Quick drive over from my house. I love it when I can, get out of the house first off and then come somewhere pretty close and then have a good conversation.
We're pretty much neighbors.
We are neighbors, dude.
Like, I didn't realize how close you were, and I was like, holy crap. Like, I thought you were coming from, like, Santa Monica or something, so I was like, oh, man, maybe he's battling traffic or something, so. But, yeah, that's super close.
No, quick Uber.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, 5-minute Uber.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And for the listeners, Casey is a twin as well too. Identical, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Identical.
So that is one thing I just really kind of. I think that's why we hit it off when we met at Chris Harder's mixer in Santa Monica. I was
that's
just
right.
Like, this guy's a twin. I was like, I feel the energy. You were telling us like all the twin stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of intimidating though, like not having my twin here and like having you guys on the other side of the table. Like I'm like, I need my Jeremy here so he can say exactly the same things I'm saying, like how you guys are saying.
Yeah. So who's older?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah.
By how many minutes?
I think at first we thought like 6, and then we found out it was like only 2 minutes.
Gotcha.
My parents, they were on serious drugs when I was a kid, so I don't think half the time they knew what they were saying. But I think 2 minutes. Yeah.
Gotcha. I gotta give you a fist bump because I'm a minute older and it still counts.
It does count.
He knows
it. There you guys go already. See, I need Jeremy right there to back me up, man.
I know.
See? So next time he's here in Los Angeles, we're gonna do a 4 type of twin thing like that.
Absolutely. My brother, and I always say this. He's the older looking too.
Oh, okay.
So he's not aging as well, even though I'm older. That's kind of how we say it.
And I think I was fascinated too by when you told me that he lives in Chicago and you live out here. So I was just like, man, I was thinking like I couldn't imagine being that far away from Chris. I mean, there's times where I need my space. Trust me, but that's far. So
well, you guys live together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we lived together for a long time. Went to college together. Lived in apartments together in Chicago and out here. But like, after I met my girlfriend, then turned wife, had kids, can't live together anymore.
Exactly.
And then he moved back, for his wife and stuff like that. And so, it just. But we are super close. They're going to come out. He and his daughter are going to come out right after Christmas.
Gotcha.
So
very cool.
yeah.
So did you guys clash or anything like that when you guys lived together?
Man, I don't think so. It was weird. It was like we were more, a unit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's how it is best, man. Like we'll sit there and argue about the dumbest things, but we'll get over it like a minute later, or somebody will say something dumb or a joke, and it's done with.
Yeah. I mean, I never found us to like we were both actors out here, at one point, but we weren't competitive. It was just an interesting thing, Like oftentimes we would want the other to get success, right?
Right.
So we were like, man, especially if we were ever put in this weird position of having to both try out for the same part,
right?
Which didn't always happen, but it's like if those weird scenarios happen, it was like we want the other to get it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
We didn't want we didn't want him to feel bad about it. So so that was it. Like we just didn't have like all that competition that you typically hear.
That's how we are. There's not competition.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when we were doing acting, a lot of times we would do it together. And we did a few things together. Like we were in a TV show, Life, an episode together, and it was great. Doing that. And you guys obviously doing your thing together.
Right.
You realize where your source of genius is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's with your twin, with your brother, with a sibling, with anybody who just resonates on such a deep level with you. You can go much farther, right? And so we always realized that together we were better as a sort of an acting, brand, I guess, instead of separate. And so so we just noticed stuff like that. But that's the thing about being a twin, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, it's I always tell people it's very unique and it's special. It really is. So I want to talk a little bit more about the acting thing because I read on your website that when you were younger, growing up as a kid, that was one of the big things you wanted to do was become an actor.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us a little bit more about this story? You said you were acting a little bit in LA for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just want to know where that came from.
Yeah. So I remember both my brother and I, we just loved the idea of comedy and improv, and like we watch TV shows and we do impressions and stuff like that. And so, you know, we both went to school for theater. I went to school for music and theater because I'm also a singer. Well, my brother is a singer too. I went to school professionally for it though, and then did some stage shows, musicals and stuff like that. And I always loved being an actor, but I was always kind of like a broke actor. Like I could never just doing the acting thing. I never actually generated enough the what I wanted in terms of a lifestyle or revenue. And so I had a transition goal, like, you know, years ago, where I was like, I was living on my wife and my, at that time, girlfriend's couch. I was like, there's got to be more than this. And so I decided, like, I was still going to be an actor, but I went into real estate and started to just branch out beyond that, right? Beyond acting. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go into real estate. So I became a mortgage broker. And I made money, but I hated being a mortgage broker. It just did not resonate with me.
Yeah. Really quick though, how come real estate out of everything though?
Why real estate?
Yeah.
It was the fastest way I thought to make money.
Okay.
I mean, I was solely like, you know what? I need some cash. So I was like, I'm gonna make some money. I'm gonna jump into real estate. And at the time, I was hearing about a friend of mine who was like doing really well in mortgages. So I got my license, my real estate license, and then I went over to his company. It was just the two of us, and we just started generating a lot of money right out of his garage, right? And so I had the freedom still do acting, and so I was doing acting while doing that, but I just did not like my day-to-day. I was doing all these cold calls, and it was like, just felt fake, phony, and just, I just didn't like it. And so I was acting while doing that, but as an actor, the problem I found that is I was still held in a box, you know. And you think about acting, you think about like being able to turn into somebody else, but the industry is very in a box sort of driven, just like any 9-to-5 business, right? You're always placed within boundaries of, hey, you're this type, so you can only do this, right? You're a twin, so you can only do this. I hate boundaries. I hate the box. I don't like the fact that I was, you know, had these boundaries around me. So it was interesting that I migrated out of being an actor into what I do now, which has no boundaries per se. It's only boundaries I create for myself, you know, and it allows me to create a bigger impact while still pulling out some of that acting stuff that I used to do. But I just never liked the parts that I was, you know, that where I was put into and things like that. And I was more of an artist than a business person at the time. You know, I was like, I remember doing it and feeling like, oh, well, I should be getting all these roles, right? If I knew then what I know now, I would have understood branding a bit more and how you have to really, really, truly brand yourself in a super effective way, right? And so that was one thing that you know, if I you know, could look back, I would have helped myself with. Yeah, I think that I just wanted to make money at one point in my life, and then I did that for a while, but hated the experience. And then a blessing and a curse came kind of when the recession hit. So I was doing this is a long time ago, right? So I was doing mortgages, and then the recession hit, and I just bought a house. And I went from a job where I was making like $250 a year, right, to then making $15,000 the next year, and I almost went into foreclosure. My relationship with my wife was getting really rocky, and at that time, acting wasn't even on my mind. It was all about how do I pull myself out from this problem that I found myself in. So I started learning about online marketing because I had this idea back in the day that I wanted to market real estate in a better way. Just everything I was doing with it, like all these cold calls, like all that stuff, just I didn't like it at all. It just didn't feel right to me. And so I started looking at marketing online, and in my journey of looking at online marketing, I realized I found that video was like the most important thing for resonating with your audience, especially back in the day where it was like bridging the gap of impersonality found on the web, right? Marketing wasn't really prevalent back in like 2009.
Right.
You know what I mean? Online.
Especially video.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I dove into YouTube. You know, YouTube had only been around for maybe a few years, and at the time it was like viral videos of some dude, with a lightsaber, some overweight dude just spinning it around. But it started to get to be more of a marketing tool, and so I started learning about it, started helping companies with it, and at first I was going to pivot into like using like online marketing and YouTube to market a real estate business, right? My mortgage business. But then I started loving YouTube so much that I was like, screw this. I'm just going to go into being what at the time was, I guess you'd consider a video marketing expert, right? Yeah. Even though there was no name for it. There was no name called video marketing expert, but that's really what I did. I went into YouTube and then I started like consulting on it, getting leads for different clients. And that was the beginning of my sort of online career, where I started doing that, and I created a course all about YouTube, and then back I think it was like 2011 to 2012 I created my first course online, and in that year of 2012 I built an email list of about 14,000 people, and then I generated $250,000 that year selling my YouTube course, right? So I was able to make it up, but the years in between, the 2 years of like just figuring it out from 2009-ish to 2011-ish was like really tough, but it was a great transition because I tapped into doing something I loved again, video, right? Kind of around the acting thing, right? It's still kind of, getting in front of the camera, being transparent, so I started to realize like that was the key to marketing too, and now video marketing and even being an actor, I mean, it's all together, it's all combined, and I found that it's more powerful me being me than me trying to be somebody else as an actor, right?
And I think there's a really like key lesson in that you just told, where you were doing video marketing for YouTube for other people. So what you did is kind of branched out. You did some freelance type work, and you just became really resourceful, right, with what you had around you. And that's what a lot of people I still feel today don't do. They're not utilizing all the resources around them. They're just like thinking, oh, I just need to pay for ads. I need to pay for ads, when there's so many different other ways to become resourceful, to put yourself out there and be profitable. It just takes a little bit more work and thinking outside the box. So I love how you did that.
Yeah.
And what would you say, like, what was like the biggest like lesson you learned from that experience when you just branched off and you did that type of video marketing work, and then you're like, okay, it's time to just do my own thing?
I found that like when your back is up against the wall, right? You have two options: you fold or you push forward and create new boundaries for yourself, or break through barriers and create a new like this is what I didn't realize was possible. And so for me, there was moments where I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like let my house go into foreclosure and go into I was almost gonna become a financial advisor, right? But it's not what I wanted to do, and my wife was like, dude, let's keep our house. See what you can do to keep our house. And so ultimately that was the goal. And I feel if you create strong goals and you raise the stakes as to why you need to succeed, you can succeed. It might not take you, a week, 2 weeks, a month. It might take you longer, but the more you just keep applying pressure to breaking down that barrier, eventually it'll give, and you'll create a new.
I like that.
You'll create a new parameter around what you can accomplish in your life.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was the house. Keeping the house was
Keeping the house was exactly.
Yeah.
That was foundationally that was the thing that said, okay, well, I have to succeed. I don't have an option.
Yeah.
So let's keep at this and keep applying it, and the pain, the difficulty, just like working out, it's like, how like if you just start working out, your muscles are in serious pain, but eventually it's not as painful.
Exactly.
You define this new threshold for yourself, and I think that that ultimately is success. You know, you just have to keep pushing and define a new threshold. The pain goes away after a while. Yes, there's a new pain that now you have to strive for, but you create an endurance, and I think that's the key. Because it's never overnight, you know, and you just have to realize it's never overnight.
Yeah. And would you say too, though, like a lot of people just are trying to avoid like pain these days, when you should have, it's almost like you have to endure that pain, right, to be successful and just get outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of people are trying to avoid it.
Well, you know, I don't know if you saw the new Rocky 2, or not Rocky, sorry, Creed 2.
I haven't seen it yet.
Man, yeah.
Good?
All right, yeah, it was really good.
Okay.
But Rocky in the movie, you know, he said to Creed, he said, you know, what are you fighting for, right? Because there's this new fight that he's got to do against the Russian. And if you ever saw like old Rocky movies, it's kind of basically the same thing kind of happening again. But Rocky asked Apollo, not Apollo, but his son, right? Adonis.
Yeah.
He said, what are you fighting for? And at the time, Adonis didn't have a reason. He didn't have a reason, right? He didn't have stakes enough. What were the high? He didn't have high enough stakes to push beyond, and he lost that fight. Then his daughter was born, and he centered himself. He kind of looked at like, I can't fail at this because of this, right? So it's like, you know, a lot of us, I think, try to avoid. Not even like pain, but responsibilities. You know, like I have 3 kids, and we adopted 2 this year, right? And that's not easy, but it was a challenge that because we've been through so much already, almost losing a house, having to push beyond that, some medical stuff that my wife had to face, right? All these challenges just made us realize that we could handle this next one, right?
Exactly.
Right, and then the goal would be, how do we create a dynamic lifestyle around you know, having these wonderful children in our lives, and still build businesses that resonate with us, and still create a lifestyle for ourselves that it has deep meaning, and you know, that's been the goal of 2018 since they've been home since this last February.
Love it.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got into webinars, because I'm really interested in that. So like you talked about like making like a YouTube course that did really well, and then how did you transition like into webinars or get that idea? And you know, like let's talk a little bit more about like some questions I have with webinars, but let's just talk about how you got into webinars from the course.
Yeah. So like anyway, you know, in 2011. I spent 6 months building a course, right, all on YouTube, and I think I launched it, like it was finally done in 2012, but I couldn't sell it at all. Like I was just like all the normal ways back in the day of trying to sell a course, where I was like, you know, posting on Facebook or going into forums, and like I didn't have a big list, right, and so I was struggling big time to promote that course and get it out there and get sales at all. Until I started, I saw that people were doing what were known as webinars, which were basically, you know, live events, creating sort of a presentation, and then, you know, and I saw people were actually selling, you know, their courses or programs from these webinars, but I was like terrified of running them because I'm not a good salesman. I suck at selling. So I was like, dude, I don't know if this is going to work for me.
Still to this day, you're terrible at it?
I think that being a good salesman or salesperson is different now, and it kind of resonates more with me anyway. Okay. Like, I think back in the day, I was like, I wasn't good at the pitch, and I felt like I had to be good at public speaking to be good at the pitch, and all these things these limited beliefs that, you know, I think everybody feels, you know, they're like, everybody sort of has this like, I'm not a good salesperson, and they feel like, you know, they have to like be almost like a neuro-linguistic expert, or like, you know, have, you know, years of sales training to be able to do this, when it's actually not the case. But anyway, what I decided to do back in the day was create a video inside of YouTube promoting a webinar, you know. So I was like, I created a video because I knew how to get leads from YouTube, but I didn't have a conversion tool. I didn't know how to convert a lead into a sale just from just the video alone, or just from coming to a sales page itself, right? All those things just were not resonating with people. So I made a video saying, come to this free workshop where I'm going to teach you how to get on the first page of Google using YouTube. The backdoor effect of Google is what I called it back in the day. And I had some weird, crazy, like cheesy, super cheesy, like imagery and stuff like that. It's so silly. But so I did that, and I started getting people signing up for this event, right? And I was like, well, that event became a webinar. So I got people to show up to this live webinar, and my first probably 10 webinars, I never sold anything. I just overshared what kind of I was doing, right? And people loved it, and I was so nervous. I remember oh man, so destructive of me. I'm not a smoker, right? But I remember, this was years ago, okay? I remember I was so nervous before my first webinar that I had there was a pack of Marlboros, and I was smoking cigarettes, and I have no idea why, because I was not a smoker, and I don't smoke at all. And I was but I remember having them in my office. I don't know, I think my brother left them or something. He doesn't smoke either, but recreationally back in the day, I think he was doing. So I was so nervous. I was smoking cigarettes and just super nervous. Anyway, I remember finally doing one of my first webinars, and I sucked. I was oversharing everything, but at the end of it, people were so gracious. They this was great content, thank you so much. And I started getting more feedback hey, is there something I can buy? Because I was too scared to pitch. I was too scared to talk about my program. Eventually, I did, because I was screw it. I have to put a price tag on this, and I have to actually start selling it. And so I sold it for $200. And at the time, I didn't have that many case studies. But I started to realize that I needed them to be able to, promote the offer and talk about results. That's something that I'm huge on nowadays. It's all about results. If you can highlight results, your pricing is based on any results that you can get. So I did get some of my consulting clients' results with YouTube, before I even had a course, right? And I used those as case studies, basically. And as soon as I did that, and I got on a webinar, I remember one of my first paid webinars, or not paid webinars, but webinars where I pitched, right? They're free webinars, but then I pitch my course at the end. It was in the dead of winter. It was at the farmhouse of my my wife's parents in Iowa. They have a farmhouse, and it was the back trailer of the farmhouse. Internet was terrible, dead of winter, heater blaring. I was using some busted up PC, built-in microphone, and I overshared webinar, everything, the Wi-Fi was cutting in and out. But at the end of the day, I sold $2,000 worth of products from that webinar. But I also had someone promoting me, right? So the more I did these free webinars, I had other people saying, hey, you have, it looks like, I want to talk about what you have. And so I made relationships with people that had bigger lists than me. And so at this was one of my first ones where I was selling my course, and it was a guy who was promoting it. And so there was 300 people on this webinar, and I was terrified. That was tons of people. I was holy shit, what if I screwed up? So, and I did. I screwed up tons of times. But all said and done, I sold 10 of my $200 program. Now, if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have sold $20,000 worth instead of $2,000. Right. But I was just beginning. Yeah. But the whole idea was that was the first time I'd ever sold anything online, and so it helped me to really validate that this was the way to go.
Yeah, that gave you confidence too.
That's why I started going on down the road of webinars. And within that year, I did tons of webinars. I increased my pricing because I realized that my offer, I got better clientele the more I increased my price. I started reflecting the offer more in my webinars, and then my course turned into a $1,000 course by the end, and that's why I was able to sell about $245,000 worth of product that year, because I increased my pricing, and I realized that I could do one live webinar a week and get like 60 people on and do, you know, multiple six figures just in that alone. But that was my first experience with webinars, and I kind of never looked back. And then, you know, I think that the next year I was like looking for something beyond just a course, because, you know, I just didn't like the idea of just marketing a course one time and, you know, making some money, but it still was my time having to do these webinars. So I thought to build software. I don't know what happened with my brain, because I was like, I wanted to figure out if there's something else that could be done. I asked a friend, I was like, what's a new thing that's trending right now? And he was like, man, so there's a thing called automated webinars that, you know, some people have been doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, all right. And I started looking around. There was no automated webinar tool for WordPress. And so that got me on the road to finding developers, and that got me on the road to building a platform that would do automated webinars, which basically are pre-recorded webinars that stream in real time. And I did it for WordPress. And that was my first thing. And that launched in like 2013, basically. And since then, that company has grown, you know, massively. Now we are a full SaaS platform. We have a live stream tool, and we are at the top of the list when it comes to webinar automation. So think about a sales funnel tool. We take that same concept, similar like ClickFunnels or something like that, but it's all webinars, right? So we have you know, major wonderful people that are using our tool to build these evergreen webinar funnels, as well as running live webinars. But evergreen webinar funnels are really where the people that are leveraging them in our with our software are just doing huge numbers consistently, because that's their sales tool, basically. That's their sales engine, right? Any traffic goes right to that webinar. And so we have people that are, you know, doing 20,000 a month to 20,000 a day, you know, just run through our system. You know, so it's been a wild ride in just all the things we did wrong. And I mean, I was not a software person. If you asked me 5-6 years, if you asked me 6 years ago if I would today have a software company, I'd say like, no, I have no idea what that is. But we learned the revenue models, like, you know, the monthly recurring revenue and SaaS, and like just all the things that you want to really find in a recurring revenue business, right? And software company. And so now we have wonderful customer service, and just all these things that, you know, we've learned throughout the years, right? Through trial and error.
Right. And that's why I love asking these questions, because, I mean, you come from a passion and a love with, you know, singing and entertainment and acting, and then all of a sudden you have a software right now with webinars. So it's just crazy seeing how, like, you went through all, like, those roads to get there. So with like 5 years of experience having your own, you know, webinar software, and just like all the experience you had in the past with like YouTube, running your own type of webinars, like where do you see webinars going in 2019 and kind of like the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've been looking at what's happening with webinars. You know, since like 2 years ago, I started to look at that webinars are getting there's more around engagement with them, right? And so my goal is to continue to create super high engaged events that go beyond just like the traditional 4x3 PowerPoint presentation and things like that, but to leverage just deeper engagement, and then also deeper automation, right? The true goal that I see is that how do you create authenticity and sort of a mom and pop feel around automation, right? So the way we look at it now is, can we give people an engaged experience, right? Where it feels like almost like you guys, let's say you guys are running a webinar, but it's pre-recorded.
Right.
How can the audience feel that it's still highly engaged, highly high touch, without you guys having to be there, right? That's the goal. That's really the way we're looking at this. And then when you do go live, where you're truly there, what are elements that will just get people more involved in the conversation? And so what we kind of look at is, how does it get to be like, you know, can people like share love? Like when live streaming got to be pretty popular, like with Meerkat and Periscope, back in the day, we started looking at how webinars were going to be that landscape as well. And so now the big push for us is like, how can we almost gamify, the experience of a live webinar, right?
Right.
How can we, potentially bring in AI, into it as well, right? And also, how can we bring in like a deep understanding of what your audience is doing while participating, right? And so analytics is a big deal for us, right? We want to know everything that someone is doing during the webinar, right? Beyond just showing up and things like that, we want to know if they're engaged.
Yeah.
And back in the day, 2 years ago, we built a tool that would track engagement from Periscope and Facebook Live. So you could tell who was coming to your broadcast, how engaged they were. We call that product Full Scope. Now, we marketed it. We did marketing on it a couple of years ago, and but when Periscope sort of fell, tanked. We kind of shelved it. But the plan of it was still, pushing forward into this next evolution of sort of experiential thing around live, or perceived as live. So now we're taking what we created with Full Scope, which was to know how engaged someone was, and now we're applying it to Easy Webinar.
Right.
So we're looking at the social spectrum and changing that around. So with Easy Webinar, you can push to Facebook Live now, your broadcasts. And so now we want to be able to rank, we want to see the people that are coming from Facebook, how engaged they are, comments, likes, shares, negative comments, positive comments, and then have that, be able to track those people coming into maybe the webinar itself, right? And then see their sort of the pattern of their experience from coming from one platform to the next. And so our thing is we want to bridge and make Easy Webinar into more of a social platform, where we go more into live, more engagement is what we're focusing on. And then for the automated stuff, being able to just increase those elements of engagement on automated as well, right? As I said, go into AI a bit. Some things that are on a roadmap, we want to just also look at a bigger audience, so like closed caption, for the hearing impaired and things like that. So we're just moving into a kind of a different direction. But just going more all in on webinars,
Yeah, and I think you're spot on with the engagement part. And this is something I teach to like a lot of our inner circle students that are getting into the marketing game. It's just the difference between the era we live in now, which is more of an interactive marketing world as opposed to a direct marketing world. It's like you have to get people to know you, like you, trust you. It's like you have to get that engagement, right? You have to give good, valuable content. Otherwise, it's like they're never going to trust you and become potential buyers, right? You can't sit there and just put out like a direct, marketing thing and just be like, okay, here's the button, buy, without even knowing who we are or any engagement. So I like that. I like what you're saying about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel the same way because like learning about the YouTube stuff. Like I just early on, I realized that YouTube was needed to that. You needed to create that know, like, and trust, that interactivity, that personal connection. So how can you do that but still leverage your time in the best way possible? Yeah. I think that was the overall impetus to creating the tool in the first place. And now it's just like, how can we refine that more and more and more going into the next 5 years?
Right.
So if there was, I want to ask, if somebody was new to webinars, they've never even experienced it, they don't know what they're doing, what is like the best piece of advice you can give for that person tapping into webinars, and then what do you feel people are doing wrong when they're doing webinars?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think people, there's a lot of different education sources out there for how to do an effective webinar, right? And I think what happens is people go out and start to try to learn this stuff, and they try to, and this goes back to my whole, don't fit yourself into a box thing, but they see someone teaching like slide 1 needs to be this, slide 2 needs to be this, and they almost teach, they see someone teaching a sales method running webinars, they try to duplicate that, and it fails miserably because of a couple reasons. Like, the audience isn't the same. It doesn't resonate in the same way. It doesn't have an authentic experience, right? It doesn't feel like the person that's trying it. And I've had countless people come to me and say, like, Casey, I learned this method, I ran it, 45 slides, I did it, and just like it bombed. It didn't resonate with my audience, and I didn't make any sales. And I was like, well, how did it feel to you? Did you feel like you were inauthentic? Did you feel like you just didn't connect with your audience? Mm-hmm. So what I kind of do is I try to like just break it all apart. Like understanding a framework is more important than copying a process that somebody else is doing, right? Because if you understand a framework of running a webinar or running a live event, right, then you can then go outside of that framework, right? Because then you understand it, so now you can sort of branch out. So the two things that I tell people that are just starting out is, as long as you have authenticity and you share value, you can generate sales of whatever you're teaching, okay, in a webinar. Because you have to just highlight why your program is valuable, right? The results that it gets. And then oftentimes, like, I have people that I say to them, get out of your slides. Don't even use slides. Get in front of the camera.
It's like
and
too
just
scripted sometimes.
And just talk. Build a relationship, because that's what's the key. The relationship is the key. Yeah. If they feel like they know you, any sales technique, you can throw away the quote-unquote sales techniques because they know you now, right? And all you have to do is just highlight why it's valuable. And you just have to understand the nuances of being able to transition into making a sale, because a lot of people, when they get to that point where they're like, okay guys, well, and they have that big lump in their throat, well, so this brings me to my course. Here it is, and it's really great. And they have no commitment. They're scared of selling. Right. And it's not about selling. It's about highlighting the pain and showing how your program is the solution. Is the final solution. It's that thing that they didn't realize is going to finally lead them to the success they want. Right. They think the solution is X, but it's not. It's your program, right? So you kind of highlight that the common solution that everybody thinks, but then you kind of break that apart and show that no, that's actually not it. This is it. But I think a lot of people, when they get to the pitch part, all you have to know is the transition. If you can transition and feel confident in that transition of like saying, okay, I just shared this content with you, and that leads me to this, right? If you can do that with pure confidence, then you're not, like, you don't feel like smarmy or like salesy. Yeah. It's just like natural, right? Just like pivot into it and express like why you built the course in the first place. Like, people just want to know, I built this course because I was looking for the same type of thing. Yeah. And as soon as and I was terrified of putting this out there, guys, this program, but I had so many people asking me for it. It was like it was my destiny to create it. And as soon as I created it, I had beta testers come through it, and these are some of the results that we got from it so far. And so I'm so humbled and excited to be able to share this with you guys. And it's like, if you show that more of that vulnerability, that honesty, the value, and the results that people can achieve from it, not so much, it's about 100 video lessons, including X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. That's great, that's the stuff, but people really want to know the results, right?
And why behind it too.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, I think that, webinars are different now. Yeah. If you suck at sales, it's okay. If you are purely, yourself, and you highlight value, and you stay authentic, then you're golden. I think that a lot of us, we try to be someone we're not in a webinar, or try to be over salesy. I think you just think about your best self, right? You can look at how other people do it and, like, for inspiration, see what they do and then go that route. Yeah. But don't try to, like, imitate them, because you're just going to fail and the people are going to sense it. Your audience is not, they're smarter than you think. I know everyone's like, oh, your audience is, they're morons. They don't know what they're doing.
They're smart.
They're savvy. People are savvy. They're smart, and so all it takes is just you being completely genuine.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are good tips.
Gold.
Yeah.
I think you need to put some of that kombucha or water on that mic. It's on fire.
Yeah. Oh boy.
No, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. All right, let's have some fun here.
Okay.
So let's say in the morning you get a text message from Mark Zuckerberg and he goes, Casey, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with Easy Webinar. I want to grant you a 10-minute Instagram live video. It's going to reach billions of people, and it's going to last for not 1 day, but 7 days. He's going to tweak some things behind Instagram to last for 7 days. What is going to be that message and why?
Wow. So what's the big message going out?
Big message to people, yeah. It could be anything.
Oh man. Well, I guess my overall message has always been like for people to tap into their genius and their authenticity.
Yeah.
And my biggest goal, I think, has always been, as an actor, I remember like I wanted to create a cathartic experience in people, right? That's what I think we go in as an actor goes into doing acting so that they create that moment, right? Like you're like, oh man, I remember that scene. It was amazing what they did. It moved me. It changed me. And so I remember, how can I take that and find that for what I'm doing now? And so for me, it became like, how can I help other people reach their, tap into their own authenticity, tap into their own vision, and then help them craft kind of like, a living out of that vision, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I guess it would be, that with how our world is going, where there's so much divide politically and so much awfulness in the world like that. I think that tapping into our humanity and being authentic and growing that authenticity and understanding human condition and being more empathetic to everyone is the key to everyone's happiness. Just being empathetic. This is a great question. You took me completely off guard with it. But, because I don't know if I would talk about changing identity, or if I would say, use that as a platform for promoting my business. But I would probably almost talk about how I feel that, when we're searching for identity, and this might make sense to you guys as twins, like for a long time I didn't have my own identity because I'm a twin, right? And I was happy with that. That's fine, right? But I did a lot of things in my life to try to almost define identity for myself, and I found that with doing things that were that tested those boundaries. Eventually I got to where I am now, where I've done really bad stuff in my life, right? And I've done things that were trying to make up for those things, which eventually turned into my identity. And so now my identity is how we can be empathetic and how we can inspire and how we can be authentic and just be our best selves. So I guess if Mark Zuckerberg said that, I would say I want to help people with becoming their best selves, and how to highlight that, and how to maybe create their own profession around it. I mean, profession is such a word that's like, doctor, lawyer, but how do you create your own lifestyle, and how do you create your own world around it, right? Where money is not an issue, right? Or time is not a problem or an issue, because that would be my goal, to give people back more freedom and time and more authenticity. I think.
That's powerful, man.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree too, though, just with like the whole compassion thing. Just we just need to be a little bit more compassionate as just human beings, especially as everything that's going on right now too. So I mean, I like that. It's good stuff. And I've noticed too on Instagram, you post a lot of good stuff, like a lot of good content. Like, I mean, there's some stuff where I read, I'm like, whoa, like I love it, because it's like you're speaking from your heart and being authentic. Right. So there was one particular post that I saw. You said, when controlling your destiny, sometimes you have to be cutthroat to seize it. So I'm just interested, like, on you elaborating on that, because that really resonated with me.
Yeah, like there's always going to be barriers and and bumps and just blocks, right? Thick walls that it feels almost impossible to break through, right? Mm-hmm. And I've experienced many of them, like we all have. For me personally, it was like, when we started the adoption process, of trying to get our sons, we adopted in Haiti, and we were running into many roadblocks and barriers and things that would stop us from the Haitian government, saying it's going to be another year, or the U.S. government saying the immigration paperwork needs to be redone, and just so many things that almost feel like this is never going to happen.
Right.
And I think that there's when you're faced with that, like what do you decide to do? Do you say like, okay, well that's it, there's nothing I can do, or do you just keep on pushing? And I think that as I talked about before, we have to just, it might take longer to break through that wall, but it's the consistent attempt to break through that wall, right? And that's what I mean. You have to be ruthless, and you have to remind yourself every day that that there's a bigger reason that you're pushing through this wall, right? And so, as I said, like I remember, to give you a story around it, I had to we struggled so much to get our sons home. Like in our last, we were told that it was going to be another 4 months to get our kids home this last year, and I talked to my wife and I was like, we've been faced with this before with trying to get our kids home. I said, I'm just going to go to Haiti and stay there until I get them and bring them back. So I went to Haiti with the goal of I'm just going to bring them back. Whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And so I went to Haiti, and I was there for a little more than 2 weeks trying to bring my sons home. And I remember days where I had my kids, my boys, and I was sitting on the stairs of a government building and just waiting, and people telling us, no, the person's not going to be here till tomorrow. And I had to come back the next day. No, they're not going to be here till the next day. And I kept coming back, and it was some of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because it wasn't here in this country. We are we can get stuff done. Mm-hmm. We can get stuff done. It's I know if I go to a government building, I can get what I need. But there, it's there is no telling what you can get accomplished, right? And there's so much so much stopping us from actually getting anything done. So there were so many days where I lost hope, but I kept going back and going back and going back and going back, and that's what I mean, basically.
Yeah,
I think
you're resilient.
That's what I was talking about, because there were so many days that I just wanted to give up. I mean, there were days where my kids were sleeping in my arms, or they're crying, and we were just sitting there, and it was it was literally out of a movie, being in a third world country trying to get these kids out of there. But it was that let me see that anything is possible. If I can endure that level of almost in my mind, it was it felt futile, it felt hopeless many days.
Yeah.
But if I can endure that and then still get through, then there's a lot that I can get done here. It kind of prepared me for a lot. But I remember fighting for my house prepared me for that sort of moment, and that's what I mean by stretching. You just have to be ruthless. You have to be able to just knock down those barriers and just create a new level of what is possible, a new level of endurance that you never thought was even possible, and just break outside your own own box again. Go back to the box. I think it's just just stretching what is even doable in our lives.
Right. That's incredible. And then just kind of staying on that same subject. I feel everybody has a dark side to them, right? And it really kind of just takes maybe we'll use what you talk about. How much stretching does it take for you to bring that dark side out of you? So you kind of use you have to be ruthless, cutthroat, right? So what brings out that dark side of you?
So I can have That's a really good question, because I can get angry, like, pissed off, like, and moments like that do it, right? It triggers like this, like, need to like I remember, like, I no matter what, I had to get my kids back. So, like, I hired somebody to help me get them back, and it's like, and he helped me to get to the front of the line sometimes, and it's just like, I think for me, I have a couple dark sides. I have, like, the dark side of when I did stuff that was in search of my own identity back in the day, where it was like living kind of in this gray area, and then realizing that I didn't want to be that type of person anymore, and just growing through that. But then also, like, we all have those moments where we regret things in our lives, and they still show today, but we know how to process them in a different way now, right? Let's say. So for me, I might get angry, or I might get resentful, or I might feel some of these things where like somebody owes me something, and it's like taking that and reframing the actual, like, feeling and emotion around it, right? And applying it into something that's actually beneficial instead of non-beneficial and destructive. And so, like, I do have like a screw you, I'm gonna, like, make this happen type of thing. And I was never good with authority at all. Never good with authority. And I probably was fired from like 20 jobs when I was a kid.
I feel like that's a twin thing.
Really?
Yeah, so we're fired for like a lot of jobs too.
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, like, I just never could hold a job down. Never good with authority. And I think it's just like, if someone tells me I can't do something, I will prove them wrong. Yeah. And I don't like bullies. I hate bullies. I remember in high school, like, I was a thespian, right, an actor, and I remember, and a lot of the actors in school, they were like, they didn't have a strong, they were these sort of kids that were, one would consider geeky or like outcasts, and so, the quote unquote jocks would make fun of them, and I was kind of in the middle. My brother and I were kind of in the middle. We weren't really super dorky, but I remember, like, a couple times when, like, the football dudes would, like, make fun of my people, right?
Right.
I remember just getting, like, this loudest voice I could, like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like, getting right in their face and just being so, like, loud and angry and like, you're not gonna hurt these people. Yeah. Like, that's one of my things. If someone is just hurting someone for the sake of hurting them, right, I get violently angry, and so I hate bullies. That's one thing. I have a trigger about it, and I'll get, like, crazy. I'll get crazy about it. I haven't had the need to do that in a while, except I tap into it when I have to do things like bring my children home, right? I have to, fight the bullies of the government or whatever.
That's a good reason.
So I noticed that is still sort of there.
Yeah. You mentioned regret. Is there anything in your life that you regret that you don't mind sharing with us? And then what are you most grateful for and excited about going forward?
Yeah. Let's see. What do I regret?
I mean, I know we can't go back and fix it, but still.
Yeah. What do I regret? Well, I mean, I could tell you there are moments that I've had where I've done very selfish things, right? And I think that we do selfish and destructive things all the time, and so without, like, basically naming what it was,
right?
I've regretted selfish moments in my life. Okay. I mean, I remember, like, cheating on a girlfriend, or when I was a kid, I was kind of destructive. I would, like, steal stuff from stores and stuff like that, And I think it was this search for my own identity, this search for some sort of reaction, right? Because I felt like sometimes, I mean, my brother and I have our own identities, but sometimes I think I felt like I was, like, not even seen Like someone didn't even see, they couldn't even see me. And so I would do things that would, that would probably be reactive to try to get, seen somehow. But, and so that would manifest itself into like stealing candy out of stores and stuff like that, doing things like that.
Yeah.
And I regret all of that. And I regret how I also did, how my doing things, I did them out of selfishness, not out of empathy and compassion, right? And so when I was trying to be seen out of selfishness, it never worked. But when I turned that around and now devote my time and energy into helping people, you're just naturally seen.
Right.
And it's just an interesting thing of how your aspirations or how if your goal is to build an audience, how doing it out of the selfish, or destructive, out of that behavior just never manifests the right way. But doing
how
it,
the universe works, right?
Yeah. But doing it from, with letting go and truly wanting people to be happy and truly wanting someone's success and then helping people, it just naturally comes,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I do regret that, that when I was, sort of trying to build a business or trying to find my identity, I would do things out of selfishness instead of doing things out of empathetic compassion and just unabashed sort of like selflessness, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm with you. I can relate with that too.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And then would you say you're fulfilled and happy with the person you see every morning?
I think that there's always room to grow. I think that I'm happy with the direction I'm going in. Not to say that I'm happy with, that me alone, I'm good enough. Because I don't think I'm ever good enough. Like, I think that I always need to keep on trying. Like, so the answer is, it's mixed.
Right.
I think that I'm happy with the direction I want to go in and the reasons I do what I do, but I feel like I could be better at doing all of that and just strive to be a better person, right? More fulfilled in my relationships, just giving more time to my children, but also giving attention and time into my business. Like, I don't know, I just think that we can never settle on who we are, I think that we can be happy in the journey of getting to the point where we want to be, as long as that person that we're trying to strive for is a good person,
right?
And I think that we're never truly good, but we have to be appreciative for the day and what we're doing, and then keep striving to be better and better.
Right. And I think that's what's good though, to not always be content with that, right? Because that's what keeps like your ruthlessness and your cutthroatness, right?
Yeah.
To where you want to get better and you're not content with it. You want to get better as a business owner, to your kids, to your wife, stuff like that.
Right.
And just to add to your point, that's good. And I was listening to a podcast earlier this morning, and he made this. It was Tom Bellew made a really good point about just, as an individual, as a person, we're all average. We're all average. It's just whether you want to take it to the next level and just be that special person. Because at the end of the day, we're not given anything. We're not special with all these like superhuman powers. Yes, some of us are born with God-given talents and stuff, but we're all average. And it just all depends on what you're willing to do to get to that next level, and how relentless, how resourceful, and just keep fucking pushing.
That's good.
I think that's true. It's like, we need to create a vision for ourselves, right? That's better than us, right? Because I don't think we're ever. It's not about reaching that. It's about striving for it and reminding ourselves, because otherwise we're just going to fall back. Because that's easy to do. Because we all have stuff from our childhood. We all have the way that we were. Our childhood doesn't necessarily define us, but it can.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to methodically plan out who you want to be. and how you want to change the world. And hopefully you do that you take those powers and do them and use them for good, right? You want to change the world for good. Some people in our history have obviously been very ambitious and then went down a path of evil. So I think ambition is good, as I talked about, but it's like it has to come from a place of selfless and giving and sharing and caring.
Absolutely.
And so I mean that's really it. I think for me it's like I'm not content with where I'm at, but I'm happy with how I see the direction of my life.
Absolutely. And that's the most important thing. That's
right.
Awesome. So Casey, we're coming to end to this podcast. This has been great. This has been great. I think just getting towards the end, just getting to know you more, just having this conversation, I feel like we can just go on for hours with this.
Yeah.
So before I ask the last question, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. First, for coming here, spending your time with us. This has been great, just delivering your value, your story, your wisdom. I'm glad you got out of real estate.
Yeah,
you're doing something that you are just serving other people, and just like you said, it's you're excited about your future going forward. Your story about going to Haiti and getting your kids, that's fucking courageous, man. Honestly, I'm just at awe with that. And I know your kids are going to look back at that and just be like, holy shit, like my father did that. And it's amazing.
Well, I was just going to say, as much as we have impacted their lives, they have impacted us in amazing ways. Right. It's just been an incredible experience. Just having our kids here and just what is possible, what what family means in general it's redefined that to me.
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah. And then just cheers to 2019, going into 2019,
back
more
at you.
Success. And, So what does living a dynamic lifestyle mean to Casey Zeman?
Well, that's a good question. And I love it. When I was thinking about this, I was like, I feel like lifestyle, obviously when you think about it, you think fast cars. Maybe there's a stigma to it, fast cars and private jets and fast life. But dynamic means not on a superficial level to me. Dynamic means you defined what lifestyle means to you. And so for me, lifestyle means being able to give my family any the things that they need in the world, while at the same time serving the greater good, and just being able to find the equilibrium between the two. Not the balance, because there's never a balance, but just finding that fluidly I can create an equilibrium and still be happy and successful in all areas of my life, right? And I think that's what it means, to still creating that impact while feeling fulfilled and giving love, basically.
Yeah.
So
man, I love that fluid equilibrium. I love that.
Because it's never balanced.
Right.
You can't have both balanced equally. It's because one might need your attention more than the other. Yeah. And if we have this ability to be, and you've created it, you've created the ability to have one or the other, where one is maybe needs more attention now versus the other one. You create that, and it's the infinity sign. I was doing. But it's you could just, I don't know. I think it's as long as you can create that fluid, that element, that's what I see as dynamic, because dynamic seems to be ever changing and ever growing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I ask where the listeners can follow you and your work, is there anything that we could support you with, or even the listeners, what we can support you with? Anything coming up? Anything like that?
I think just keep spreading the word. I mean, we want people. Our vision basically is to help people with leverage their expertise and build their dream businesses or a life out of those, and so. We're doing more with Easy Webinar. We're obviously bringing in more and more people. We have a lot of people in the motivational space, obviously, or interestingly enough, using our platform. And so we just want to bring more and more people into it. We have a vision for basically reaching more people. I'd like to be able to reach 100 million people every few months if I can. That's a big vision, and then we'd love to change people and help them build their businesses, probably a million. My goal is 1 million people that are now, finding the business and life they want, and they're using our system and tools to get them there, right?
Yeah.
So we're just trying to build that up more and more, teach people about that. So, just let people know about Easy Webinar, or, our philosophy of being tribe-minded, which is that combination of engagement and automation to build, your brand and business. So, so that's about it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Consider it done. So where can our listeners and followers follow like you and your work and everything you do?
Yeah, Instagram seems to be the one I'm a lot of times. I share stories of my family. I talk about business, and sometimes on the story you can hear more about the business. But Casey Zeman at Instagram, you can learn more about the business. But you can I'll share like silly pictures and inspirational quotes and stories that we've had to go through me personally with my wife. I'll probably share a bit too much for what my wife is happy with, but
okay.
But I'd say there, and then Easy Webinar does have an Instagram account, but we're still building that up, but you can go to easywebinar.com to learn more about that tool.
Perfect. So we'll have that linked up all in the show notes. Guys, go follow Casey Zeman on Instagram and Easy Webinar, even you YouTubers. Casey, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Casey.
It was my pleasure, you guys.
All right, guys, until the next time.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this podcast video. If you guys are interested in watching and listening to more of our podcasts, make sure to click the link in the description box below. We have a ton of awesome podcasts. We're up to like 130 right now. We're giving one out every single week, and we're actually bringing on some of the big guests out there, and everything is really centered around lifestyle habits, systems, overcoming adversity, how someone got from point A to point B, and some of the rituals and lessons learned throughout that entire journey. So you guys will gain a lot of value from these podcasts, whether it's through audio or here on YouTube, okay? So make sure to check out the link in the description box, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.